Omar Khadr, the convicted, unrepentant terrorist, convicted of murdering Christopher Speer, a U.S. sergeant in Afghanistan, was granted bail about a week ago. What the Conservative government then did was they issued an emergency motion to prohibit him from being granted bail. And today, the Alberta Court of Appeal ruled that the Conservative government's last-minute attempt was void. Omar Khadr will be out on the streets before you know it, folks. Anthony Furey's here with me to talk about it. Anthony, your initial reaction, because I got to say, I spoke to Ed Preachy, a defense lawyer, earlier this week, and he seemed to think that the Conservatives had a very good shot. And I mean, I got to say, I was surprised by the ruling.
Omar's out, mothers, lock up your daughters. I gotta say, I wasn't surprised by the ruling because people have been denouncing activist courts for years now, and I've never totally gone along with that narrative, but I'm not surprised at all for a number of reasons. But what I really want to talk to you about more now, Marissa, is how immaterial of your views on this case. There's a lack of reason, I think, coming from Omar Khadr's supporters.
Specifically, what does that mean?
A lack of reason in that he has become a folk hero in Canada. He has become a symbol for all things just and perfect and fantastic. And I don't understand that because, to your point, no matter what you think of the child soldier category, he still killed Sergeant Spears. He was still there. His family is still completely dirtied by all these connections that they have. This is not a guy you want to be holding up as your poster boy. And as I tweeted, I think folks would much rather he get the Order of Canada than Don Cherry. And that is a jaw drop.
No, and I have no doubt that we are merely weeks, potentially days away from him receiving the Order of Canada. I don't know when it's actually.
He might become the new Lieutenant Governor of Alberta.
But,
I don't know.
But listen, I'm reminded of people like Tabitha Southey and people like Elizabeth May, who actually said she would host Omar Khadr. Hey, Elizabeth May, if you want to host this convicted terrorist in your home, by all means. Fortunately for you, he isn't allowed out of Alberta for now.
Well, actually, we got to keep this segment really short because I'm due at the CBC shortly because I'm having a pitch session to pitch them on a sitcom about Omar Khadr and Elizabeth May living together. I think it's going to be hilarious, and I hope they greenlight it.
Okay, speaking of media loving for Omar Khadr, and I think this is really important, today Omar Khadr's terrorist sympathizing lawyer came out and had a few words for Stephen Harper. Have a listen.
My view is very clear. Mr. Harper is a bigot. Mr. Harper doesn't like Muslims. Mr. Harper, I once said publicly to Mr. Harper, when you put your children to bed, ask yourself whether you would like your children to have been abused like Omar Khadr. I followed that child to a grown man, and I keep here saying the mantra. It's also political. He wants to show he's tough on crime, and who does he pick on? A 15-year-old boy.
So Harper's a bigot. Harper doesn't like Muslims. Harper likes to pick on 15-year-old boys. Well, actually, last time I checked, Omar Khadr was, what, 28 years old?
Well, first of all, I got to hand it to this lawyer. I mean, if Khadr's getting bail, he's getting bail. I think the lawyer's a pretty darn good one, and I want him in my case, if I'm ever convicted of terrorism. It's so sad that, to go back to my earlier point, the lawyer he's not talking about the case here. He's saying Stephen Harper is an Islamo-fascist bigot, or whatever his quote was. I mean, really, folks, this has nothing to do with the case. This is creating a culture war where you're not on the right side of, you're not on the winning side of. The idea that wanting to prosecute Omar Khadr for doing something that's clearly wrong and shady, we're just disagreeing as to the legal particulars of it, that somehow makes you a racist when race is not a salient factor in this. Again, there's a lot of jaws dropping here, Ms. Semkiw.
And you make a good point, because the Conservatives opposed his release based on a jurisdictional argument that I went through with Ed Preachy earlier in the week. But I got to ask you, Anthony, do you think that Omar Khadr poses a threat to you and to Canada more broadly?
I've always maintained, and this is not a popular view, I wish that he had been prosecuted according to above ground laws. I didn't like him going to the Guantanamo space stuff because that was what enabled him to become a folk hero. And now he's damaged goods. Like it or not, I mean, this guy's life is messed, and I don't trust the guy. I don't feel good about where he's at right now because he is damaged goods. So yeah, I'm a little worried what's going to happen in his future. But you know, if anyone can make a bad boy good, it's Liz May, I gotta tell you.
I wish Omar Khadr had stayed in Guantanamo Bay, but that's just me. Thanks for joining me, Anthony.
You're welcome.